The evening cleaning crew had long since gone home when Marcus Webb pushed his maintenance cart past the executive offices on the 42nd floor. His uniform was wrinkled from a double shift and his shoulders ached from mopping floors since 6 that morning. But he smiled anyway because that's what his daughter Emma always told him to do. "Daddy," she'd say in that serious 8-year-old way of hers, "smiling makes the hard things easier." Through the glass walls he could see Natasha Holloway still at her desk. The CEO never seemed to go home. Marcus had worked in this building for 3 years and he'd seen her there at midnight more times than he could count. She had that same focused look on her face that Emma got when she was doing her homework at their small kitchen table. He was about to move on when he noticed the chessboard. It sat on the credenza by the window where the city lights sparkled like scattered diamonds. The pieces were set up mid-game and from where Marcus stood he could see it was a fascinating position. "Do you play?" Marcus startled. Natasha stood in her doorway now watching him with curious eyes. She'd removed her suit jacket and looked more tired than intimidating. "I'm sorry ma'am," Marcus said quickly. "I didn't mean to disturb you." "You're not disturbing me," she said and there was something gentle in her voice. "I asked if you play chess." Marcus hesitated. "A little. My father taught me when I was young." Before he passed, Natasha studied him for a moment then gestured to her office. "Would you like to finish this game? I've been staring at it for an hour and I can't figure out my next move." It was highly unusual, Marcus knew that, but there was something lonely in her eyes that reminded him of his own reflection some mornings. "If you're sure it's all right," he said. They sat across from each other at the small table. Up close Marcus could see the fine lines around her eyes and the silver strands threading through her blonde hair. She was beautiful in that quiet way that takes time to notice. Like a song you have to hear twice before you understand it. "I'm Natasha," she said extending her hand. Marcus. Her handshake was firm but brief. They played in comfortable silence for a while. Marcus moved carefully thinking through each decision the way his father had taught him. Chess wasn't about being aggressive, his father used to say. It was about understanding. About seeing what the other person needed and finding the space where both players could be honest. "You're very good," Natasha said after 20 minutes. There was surprise in her voice but also something like relief. "You're better than you think," Marcus replied. "You're just tired. When we're tired we forget to trust ourselves." She looked up at him then really looked at him. "That's wise." Marcus shrugged. "My father used to say that. Usually right before he'd beat me in 12 moves. Natasha laughed and it transformed her face completely. "My colleagues think I'm unbeatable," she said. "I've had this standing joke for years. Beat me in chess and I'll marry you." It started as a way to deflect the men who couldn't see me as anything but a potential conquest. She moved her knight. "No one's ever come close." "Maybe they were playing the wrong game," Marcus said. He moved his bishop. "Check." Her eyes widened as she studied the board. Marcus could see her mind working through the possibilities. 3 moves later she laid her king down gently. "Well," she said and her voice was soft with wonder. "I suppose I made a promise." Marcus smiled. "I think maybe that promise was meant for someone else. Someone in a different tax bracket. Or maybe," Natasha said, "it was meant for someone who knows that wisdom and kindness matter more than corner offices." They talked then as the city glowed outside and the building settled into its nighttime silence. Marcus told her about Emma and how his wife Sarah had died 4 years ago when their daughter was just 4. How he'd taken this job because it paid better than his teaching position and Emma needed stability more than she needed a father with impressive credentials. Natasha told him about inheriting her father's company at 30 and spending 20 years proving she deserved to be there. About looking up one day and realizing she'd built an empire but forgotten to build a life. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Giving up teaching? Every single day," he admitted. "But then Emma hugs me when I get home and tells me about the book she's reading and I think maybe I'm teaching her the most important lesson of all. Which is, that love means showing up. Even when you're tired. Even when it's hard. Even when the world tells you there are more important things to do." Natasha's eyes glistened. "I don't think I've shown up for anything real in 20 years. "It's never too late," Marcus said. "My father used to say that every morning is a fresh board. You can't change the games you've already played but you can choose how you play the next one." They sat in silence for a while watching the city breathe below them. Would you like to play again sometime? Natasha asked. I find I enjoy losing to you. Marcus smiled. I'd like that. Over the next few months they played every Thursday evening after Marcus finished his shift. Natasha started leaving at reasonable hours on those days. She'd order dinner for them both and they'd eat while they played, talking about everything and nothing. About Emma's school play and Natasha's struggles with her board of directors. About poetry and music and what makes a life meaningful. Emma noticed the change in her father. You smile different now, Daddy, she said one morning over breakfast. Like you mean it more. Marcus met Natasha's daughter Claire at a company picnic 6 months later. Claire was 25 and had her mother's sharp mind and her father's gentle heart. She pulled Marcus aside while Emma and Natasha were examining a butterfly that had landed on Emma's hand. Thank you, Claire said simply. For what? For giving me my mother back. She laughs now. Did you know that? Really laughs. I'd almost forgotten what that sounded like. They were married the following spring in a small ceremony in the park where Marcus used to take Emma to feed the ducks. Natasha wore a simple blue dress and carried wildflowers that Emma had picked that morning. She'd stepped down as CEO the month before, choosing to work as a consultant so she could have time for the things that mattered. Marcus had returned to teaching. It meant less money and Natasha had worried about that until he'd taken her hands and said, "We don't need more money. We need more time." Now on Saturday mornings they all went to the park together. Marcus and Emma, Natasha and Claire. Sometimes they brought the chessboard and played teams, swapping partners every game so Emma could learn strategy from Natasha and Claire could hear Marcus's father's wisdom passed down like an heirloom. Do you ever miss it? Marcus asked Natasha one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. The corner office. The power. Natasha leaned her head on his shoulder. I don't miss it even a little, she said. I spent 20 years winning games that didn't matter. Now I get to spend the rest of my life playing the ones that do. Inside, Emma and Claire were making dinner together. Marcus could hear their laughter floating through the screen door like music. Your father was right, Natasha said. Every morning is a fresh board. Marcus kissed the top of her head. Then let's make sure we play it well. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Somewhere in the house the chessboard sat on its shelf waiting for the next game. But for now they just sat together, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of places and learned that sometimes the best victories come when you stop trying to win and start trying to understand. That night when Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at him with those serious eyes. Daddy, she said, did you know that when you met Natasha your smile got real? Marcus thought about that first night. About a tired CEO and an exhausted janitor finding connection over 64 squares. About how the most important moves in life are the ones made with kindness. Yes, sweetheart, he said. I think I did know that. Good, Emma said, closing her eyes. Because smiling makes the hard things easier, but real smiling makes everything better. Marcus turned out the light and stood in the doorway watching his daughter drift toward sleep. From downstairs he could hear Natasha reading to Claire the way she did every Saturday night, even though Claire was grown. It was never too late, she'd told him. Never too late to be the mother she'd forgotten how to be. He thought about his father then and wished he could tell him about Natasha. About Emma. About this life they'd built together, one careful move at a time. But maybe his father already knew. Maybe that's why he'd taught Marcus chess in the first place. Not to win but to understand. Not to conquer but to connect. In the end Marcus thought that's what love always was. Two people sitting across from each other. Taking turns. Paying attention. Making space for each other's moves. Building something beautiful together, one decision at a time. Outside the window the stars came out one by one. Inside the house 4 hearts beat in gentle rhythm. And somewhere between the earth and sky a game was being played the way all the best games are. With patience. With kindness. With grace. And in the morning when the sun rose again they would set up the pieces and begin anew. Because that's what love does. It shows up. It pays attention. It chooses kindness over winning. Every single time.